What's going on, everybody? ZombieDad here. Today I wanted to go over my deck list that got first place at locals this past week. I've actually won locals a couple of times with this deck, but this is my latest iteration and probably the most successful and most fun version that I've played. And if you can tell by the eggs sitting here in the middle of the screen, it's going to be Hunters. This has quickly become one of my favorite decks in the game, and I play it a lot. So it's just a lot of fun, and I like the tamer heavy decks that rely on more pieces and resources to try to outsmart the opponent and try to win the game that way. So without further ado, let's get right into it. We'll start, as you saw, with the eggs. I'm only playing the 4, that's all you play, but it's 4 copies of Monimon. His inheritable is just on deletion. If you have save, you get a draw card. So it's just a good way to generate resources. That's all this deck wants to do, really, is generate tons and tons of resources and draw a lot of cards to utilize the effects of all your tamers, which we'll get to later. So then we'll go ahead and go over the rookies here. So I'm playing 4 copies of Gumdramon, 4 copies of Psychmon. This ratio has shifted a lot, but I'm playing 3 copies of Dracmon, and we're playing 2 copies of Ikakimon. So they're all very, very good. Gumdramon, on play, you can place a Digimon card with save in its text from your hand under a tamer to draw a new card. Psychmon, on play, you can take a Digimon card with save in its text from under your tamer and add it back to your hand. So these two are kind of the bread and butter. Not only because you get to manipulate the pieces under your tamers, but their inheritables are also, when attacking, if the Digimon over them has save in its text, you get a draw card. So these guys kind of start your stack, and you're really just drawing as many cards as you can as you start to play. Dracmon, I think, is actually extremely underrated, at least by me it was. I have changed my ratios numerous times, from 2 to 3 to 4, and I landed back on 3 just for space constraints. But on play, you can reveal up to 3 tamers in your hand. You put them to the bottom of the deck in any order, and you draw 1 for each card placed. When I first started playing the deck, totally forgot that he had that effect. So I'm sitting there with just bricked hands full of tamers and him, and I forget that I can just play him out to tuck 3 tamers to the bottom and draw new cards. So that actually comes in extremely clutch. And then the inheritable is, as long as the Digimon has save, it gets plus 2000 DP. That's extremely strong when you get into your level 4s and 5s, because as you're manipulating your stack, you can get multiples of these, and he can potentially give plus 6k to something and just swing away, which is really cool. And then these 3 you can Digicross out by tucking or by playing them with a Digimon with save in its text from your field or hand to reduce their cost by 2 each one of them, so they end up only costing you 2. The Ikakimon, he doesn't have a Digicross on play anything, so really I'm trying to evolve him over the egg, or I'm trying to tuck him under my tamers to use for later. But his inheritable is, when attacking, if the Digimon has save in its text, you can give one of your opponent's Digimon minus 2000 DP for the turn, which is still really strong because you can clear little guys that are in your way. Sometimes if you have both of these in tandem, you give something minus 2 while you're getting plus 2. It makes your level 5s especially big enough to hit over certain problems. So that's actually it for the level 3s. So we will go ahead and shift into the level 4s now. If you've seen one Hunter's list, a lot of times you've seen them all. They're all pretty straightforward, but I still wanted to go over mine just because, I was able to snag the win at locals this week. My matchups were Armor Rush, which I know hasn't been totally relevant since like BT8 or whatever, but the guy playing it was really cool, and he's still learning the game, so I think he can do some cool stuff with the deck. Then I played Royal Knights. That was against another guy who he's played against it and seen it played a bajillion times already, but it was actually his first night piloting the deck. And then in the finals, I played against our local ShineGreymon player, and it was a pretty intense match. We went into the third game, and I had to end up going into superior mode, which we'll cover in a minute, to tuck his guys really early, like a level 4, which was really unfortunate. But I was able to stop him from building a stack, and then by the end of the game, he was facing 3 superior modes, and I had like 7 tamers on the field. It was just absolutely crazy. It was an insane game. But shifting to the level 4s, we're on 4 copies of Arrestor Dramon, 4 copies of Shoutmon King version. I've tested between 3 and 4 Damemons. For whatever reason, I whiff on this card all the time, so I cut him to 3. But I did keep the 1-2 Warmon, and then because of the 1 Damemon missing, I upped my Clockmons to 3. And I'll explain that here in just a minute. So Arrestor Dramon actually came up against the Royal Knight player and won me the game. I had gone in, I had swung, he had no security left. I was at 4 memory, so I was able to Digicross out a rookie. I think I did a Gumdramon, tucked a piece and drew a piece, and this was the piece that I top decked because I didn't have it. So his effect is when you Digivolve him, as long as he has 2 materials underneath him, he gives himself Rush, which is just insanely good. My opponent didn't have blockers, he didn't have anything out, so I was able to just Digivolve for 2, put me to 0. After I Digicross the rookie, give himself Rush, swing for game. It's really, really powerful. Then his inheritable is the same as Psychmon and Gumdramon. When attacking, if the Digimon has save, you get to draw a card. Then we shift over to King version. Arguably, one of the strongest cards in the entire deck. So King version and Damemon, you can Digicross out. Arrestor Dramon, you cannot. So you use a Digimon with save, it reduces them by 2, so they each cost 3. On play or when Digivolving, King version lets you play one of your 3 Hunter's Tamers for free, or without paying the cost, which is really good. Being able to Digivolve for 2 and play a 4-cost Tagiru is absolutely insane. It's a really strong play, and I really like doing it. He's arguably just the best level 4 that you play. Damemon is similar. His effect is also on play and when Digivolving, but instead of just playing a Tamer, he searches the top 3 cards of your deck, and then if you hit one of the Hunter's Tamers, he'll play it to the field, which is still really good. Like I said, I have bad luck with him for some reason, so I cut him down to 3, but I still want to see him, just for the sake of seeing him. I've fluctuated this ratio numerous times for the 2 Armon between 1 and 2. Never more than 2, but I kind of settled on 1. Same thing, it's kind of like a space constraints thing. But he Digivolves for 1 over the Dame, which is really nice. And then he can Digivolve for 3 over a level 3 with save in its tag. So you can still use him either way. When Digivolving, though, he de-Digivolves 1 of your opponent's level 5 or lower. And for every 2 cards in his sources, you can add 1 to the level. So you Digivolve him with 2 cards underneath him, he's going to de-Digivolve a level 6, which is really nice. And then Clockmon, this card is honestly the MVP. Arrestor Dramon Superior Mode, who's your pretty standard boss monster. That's the guy you try to get into when you see him. He's only 10k, so he's not very big. I know the Dracmon and the Akakimon can help manipulate DP to make him able to swing over things, but the inheritable from Clockmon just gives him jamming, which is 1,010% better than boosting his DP up or reducing something else. Clockmon's also a blocker, and on play you get to reveal the top 3 cards of your deck, and you get to add 2 Digimon cards with different colors and save in their text to your hand. So he does have other utility. This past week at Locals, I found myself, I didn't hard play him a single time, so I never played him to the field. I only used him to tuck under my Tamers for their effects, and then to use as a source when I manipulated my stack. And so then I forgot to mention it with the level 3s, but they all save, so when they're deleted, you get to tuck them underneath a Tamer. All of them but the Akakimon, because he doesn't have an effect at all. And so then the level 4s kind of take that up a notch. Clockmon only saves himself, but all the rest of them on deletion will save themselves, plus a Digimon from your trash with save in its text. So on deletion, they can save themselves plus something in their stack, or if you had something go to trash earlier in the game, they can pull a piece out you need. I've done that with Clockmon several times. He'll get trashed, and I'll end up pulling him out of my trash when a level 4 gets deleted. I found especially against like the Royal Knight player and the Shine player, because I knew the stuff that they did, I would try to keep something in raising just as long as I could, and just like Digicross play some of these guys out for low cost, so I could set them, you know, between 1 and 2 memory, and then if they got a memory setter, they'd go to 3, obviously. But you just keep your level 4s on the board and let them die, save a bunch of materials, and then when you're ready and have all your pieces, you promote out, and then you use all your resources under your tamers and just swing away. And that's kind of how I played this last week, and it was extremely successful for me. So, I mean, that's it for the level 4s. That's probably a pretty standard lineup. Some people, like I said, they'll play 4 Damemon, and I think ultimately it comes down to personal preference at this point. I have tried 4, and I've thought about playing 4 again, but where the deck's at and the space that I have, I just really like it at 3, so that I can play that extra Clockmon. So from there, let's get into the 5s. I've got 2 copies of Omnishout. I'm actually opting to play the 1 copy of Astamon. This is 100% personal preference. I know a lot of people have cut this card, but his shenanigans that he can do have won me games, so I don't want to take him out quite yet. And then after him, the last level 5 we play is the bread and butter of the deck, and that is Arrestor Dramon Superior Mode. So, this past week, Omnishoutmon actually came in clutch against the ShineGreymon player, and actually the Armor Rush player, because they just had several little bodies on the board, and you just Digivolve into him, and he just nukes a board. So what he says is, when Digivolving, choose any number of your opponent's Digimon whose DP adds up to 4,000 or less and delete them. But for every 2 cards in his sources, you could add 3,000 to the maximum that this DP deletion effect can delete. So a lot of times, you know, I would get into him with 5 or 6 or 7 sources. So at that point, by himself, he can delete up to 13,000 DP relatively easily. Or even, I mean, if you get really crazy, up to 16,000. So he's really strong, and it's good to just have him on the field. I play 2 because you want to see him if you need him. And then I realized I forgot to go over the level 4 inheritables, so I'll just do that real quick, because his is the same as Shoutmon King version. So when attacking, as long as the Digimon has save in its text, you get to delete one of your opponent's Digimon with 4,000 DP or less. This one's kind of funny in tandem with the Akakimon, the yellow level 3, because you can swing, give a 6k -2, and then this can delete it because now it's at 4k, which is just an insanely good effect to have. And then the Damemon and 2Armon in the level 4s have the same inheritable. If the Digimon has save in its text, they grant blocker. So, you know, I apologize for missing those, but that's what they do. Astamon, he's got a lot of text. He's kind of a long card to read. But like I said, he's won me games. He's stole me games. He's just insane. So when Digivolving, you can play 1 level 4 or lower Digimon card with save in its text from under one of your tamers without paying the cost. If this Digimon has 4 or more Digivolution cards, it can Digivolve into Quartzmon in your hand or under one of your tamers and reduce the cost by 3 instead. So, I mean, because he mentioned it, I'll just throw him out here. I'm on 2 copies of Quartzmon right now. We'll talk about him in just a minute. But so what I've done here with him in the past is he can Digivolve for 5 from a Psychmon. So you can go from a level 3 Psychmon, Digivolve for 5 into an Astamon, play out something from under a tamer, and then as long as he has 4 materials, he can warp into a level 7 Quartzmon. And we'll cover it when we get to the tamers. But when you Digivolve, you can suspend your tamers to tuck materials from underneath them to reduce the cost of the Digivolution. So, you know, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll pay the 5 to go into him over a Psychmon, play somebody out, do an effect if they have one, warp into a Quartzmon for 6, but then suspend my Tamers and Tuck to reduce the Digivolution cost of the Quartzmon. And that's just, I mean, that's extremely strong. Quartzmon's one of the strongest and most oppressive cards in the game right now. But we'll just keep shifting down the line. My favorite card in the deck is 100% the Boss Monster, Arresterdramon Superior Mode. Not only does he look really cool, his effect is unique and really strong. So he Digivolves for 4 over your level 4s. And then when Digivolving, you get to place one of your opponent's level 3 or lower Digimon as the bottom Digivolution card of another of your opponent's Digimon, or under an opponent's Tamer. But for each Tamer you control with a different color, you get to add 1 to the level. So in the deck, you'll see I'm playing 4 different colored Tamers. So, I mean, if you have one of each and you Digivolve into him, he's already tucking a level 7, which is just insane. And then his other effect is, at the end of your turn, once per turn, if he has 4 more Digivolution cards, he can attack without suspending. That mechanic, to me, seems absolutely broken. Because he doesn't have to suspend, and it's by an effect. You can play him out, and like with one of the Tamers, we'll go over Watchmaker, give him Security Plus. You can actually suspend him to attack with him, and then when you pass the turn, his effect triggers, he can attack again without suspending. So, you know, he can check multiple times in one turn, just by swinging away. A lot of times what I try to do, especially if I have Damemon or 2Armon underneath him for blocker, is I won't do that first swing, and I'll just play it a turn slower than I normally would. I'll pass the turn, leave him unsuspended, and then he can attack your opponent without suspending at the end of your turn, as long as he has the 4 materials. Then his inheritable, there's not a lot that goes over him except for a Quartzmon, but when attacking, you get to draw 1. And then I guess you can use your Tamers to like slot him underneath some other guys. So yeah, the inheritable is just to draw 1. Astamon also lets you draw 1. The whole point of the deck is just to draw a ton of cards. So with that, now we're on to the big behemoth of Quartzmon. This guy is nuts, especially if you can go over the Astamon for 6. Because when Digivolving, he suspends all other Digimon and Tamers on the field. Then for every 2 suspended cards, you gain a memory back. So, you know, this deck in particular, the one time I did the Psychmon into Astamon into Quartzmon play, I think I had like 7 Tamers on the field, and my opponent, we were playing really Tamer heavy decks, and my opponent had like 6 Tamers on the field. I think it was Security Control or something like that. And so I suspended everything, and I paid my 6 to get into him, and I actually gained 7 back because there were so many suspended cards on the field. Then his all turns effects just says no other Digimon or Tamers can unsuspend. He's the only one that can unsuspend. And then he has a when attacking effect that says suspend one of your opponent's Digimon or Tamers, then trash the top card of your opponent's security for every 5 cards suspended. So, like I said, his effects are crazy. He's super oppressive. The cool thing is, because he has save in the text, all of your inheritables that you can tuck underneath him will trigger and activate. So, you know, with the Dracmons, you can make him huge, the Akakimons minus, the Shoutmons delete, and then you're just going to draw tons and tons and tons of cards. But you play enough Tamers, and you hope that your opponent will try to like play stuff to out him, that when he attacks, you get to suspend something they have unsuspended at that point, and then he's just going to start trashing security. He's the ultimate win condition against those security control decks, because he just starts trashing their security, which is nice. But that's actually it for all the Digimon. We ended with the big boy Quartzmon right there. So with that, we'll get into the Tamers. You'll have to ignore my dog in the background. He's scratching his ear. So we play 4 copies of Taiki Kudo, 3 copies of Tagiru Akashi. I am playing 3 copies of Yu Amano. And then I'm currently on 3 copies of Watchmaker. So to just kind of give you the rundown, the 3 Hunters Tamers all do the same thing, where they say when you would digivolve a Digimon, by suspending the tamer, you can place sources from underneath it to reduce the digivolution cost by 1. So, if you have all 3 of them out and they all have a piece underneath them, you suspend all 3 of them, you get to make something cost 3 less, which is really nice. I've seen different ratios and people play different things. Taiki at 4 has become really common just because you're trying to dig as much as you are. So at the start of the main phase, you can take a Digimon with saving its text from your hand, tuck it underneath him to draw a new card. So he's just letting you build your stack and recycle by fixing what's underneath him specifically. So when you digivolve, you have the perfect stuff. So like with his effect, anytime I have a Clockmon in my hand, it goes under him to draw a new card, or an Akakimon. Even if I have a different rookie to digivolve into, I'll tuck him under him so I can use him when I digivolve. Shifting to Tagiru, he's a memory setter, gives you your 3 memory every start of your turn. That's all he does, other than the suspending to reduce evo cost. He doesn't have a start of main phase effect. Yu's kind of funny because they printed him wrong, so he got an errata like the day he was released. So what he actually does is at the start of your main phase, you slot or you tuck one was saved from your hand underneath him to gain a memory. So it's really cool if you have one of each of them out, because you're going to go to 3, tuck 1, draw 1, tuck 1, go to 4. And this deck can do a lot with 4 memory. Then after that, I am on the 3 copies of Watchmaker. I've thought about cutting it down to 2, but I don't think that's the right call. You want to see it, whether it gets hit in security or whether you have to play it. Because on play, you reveal the top 3 cards of your deck. You get add a Digimon with save and a card with Hunter in the traits, which is all your tamers. So the search is really good. And then his main effect is if you have 4 or more tamers in play, which is really easy to do, you can suspend him to give one of your Digimon with save in its text security attack +1. And the cool thing is they do stack per copy. So if for some crazy game or crazy reason during a game I had all 3 of them on the field, I could suspend all of them as long as I had 4 tamers to give something security attack +3. So it's going to do 4 security checks. And then it's just really cool because if you have Clockmon under that Digimon, it's going to do 4 checks with jamming. So unless you're playing something that's real option heavy, or it's able to just, I like ShineGreymon's an example where it can just minus your DP. You're swinging basically without fear, which is really cool. But yeah, that's the deck profile. I don't want to keep this video going too long, but it's a ton of fun. I absolutely love this deck. I played Cross Heart for a really long time. For whatever reason, I've always been a fan of the tamer reliant decks. I just like the play style. And it's just, it's a ton of fun. Like I said, I won locals. This is the version I won with. A couple weeks ago, I won with a different version. The only change that I've even remotely considered at this point is potentially cutting Quartzmon to 1 to slot in a copy of Overflowing Power. So this costs 0, and if you have a tamer with the Hunter trait, you can ignore the color requirements. But you get to digivolve one of your Digimon into a Digimon card with save in its text from under one of your tamers. So if I know I have this in the deck, it makes me not as concerned when I'm tucking my level 5s or my Quartzmon under a tamer, because I have a chance to see this, play it, and digivolve from under my tamer. And when you do that, you can still suspend to reduce the cost, which is really nice. It's just an insane effect, and the ability to snipe your opponent with this is just crazy. And the really cool thing with this is it does have Hunter in the trait, so Watchmaker could hit a Digimon in this, and you could still add this card. So I'm up in the air, but I'm really thinking this is going to get thrown back in just because it's just a really strong card, and it'd be good to just see it at 1 at least. But other than that, there's no changes I would make to this deck. I love it. It's a blast. I've been playing it for weeks now. And it's just something that I really enjoyed my time with. So I mean that's pretty much it. Feel free to like the video, comment, subscribe, whatever you guys want to do. And then I'll have a link to my link tree. Feel free to check out my sponsor, W.GG. They sell energy blend mix. You mix it with water or whatever your liquid of choice is, and it's no jitters, no crash, just really good flavors, awesome energy to get you through your day. I start every day with one, and it just kind of gives me that little boost I need in the morning. But I do have an affiliate code with them. If you use the code ZombieDad, you can get 10% off your order. So I'll include that link, and then that's it from me. So thank you guys for checking out the video, and have a good one. ZombieDad out.